as always, we got to remind you about our friends at Bet Online. They bring you all this great content here on Southeastern 16, and Bet Online is your #1 source for all of your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right to all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. We are going to rank our top 5 defensive units. We did the offensive units last week. So if you missed that on episode 4, you can go back and watch it. They're on YouTube and also on the podcast platforms. But today we're going to rank our top 5 SEC defensive units. We'll start at 5, work our way down to 1. And so I'll go first with my number 5. And we were talking before we started recording. Neither one of us know what the other answers are to really anything that we talk about on here. We do our own notes and we kind of lay the show out, but I have no idea what Chris's is. He has no idea what mine is really on anything, but it took me a while to, I had a couple of these teams. I knew the teams I was going to put in, but ordering them and it took me a long time to nail down my top 5 defensive units. But here we go. At number 5, I have got the Alabama Crimson Tide. Okay. I think I really like Kane Womack, the new defensive coordinator. I really like his schemes. You know, his dad was the DC at Ole Miss for years and kind of invented a certain style of defense that Kane's bringing to Alabama. And I think, and you look, there's not as many big names on this Alabama defense, but the personnel, I think, is there to get the job done. And I think I think the defense is going to turn some heads. It did not in the spring, but I think this season Alabama's defense is going to turn some heads. So I've got them at number 5. Who do you have at number 5?
Alabama does appear on my list, but not in this spot. Okay, while you agonized over this, I just took the easy way out. And I said I can't pick between these two teams, and so I'm going to make a tie at my number 5 spot. Tied at number 5, first one, Oklahoma, which gave up 23.5 points a game last year, 5.4 yards per play. Very impressive to do in the Big 12, which is offensively dominated. 9 returning starters, according to Phil Steele. Danny Stutzman, their linebacker, my odds-on favorite to lead the league in tackles. And then they've got Billy Bowman, their safety, who's going to be a first-team all-league pick. And then Woody Washington, a cornerback, who's been there seemingly forever from my neck of the woods. So they've also got Brent Venables, who can coach defense a little bit. And I tied with, I'll be a little surprised if this team is on your list. We'll see. That they weren't great last year in terms of scoring defense. They gave up nearly 26 points a game and did some of that against a padded schedule. But I just look at the names these guys have got coming back. Kentucky's got Max Hairston coming back, who's one of the top corners in the league. The front seven's really good. J.J. Weaver's been there. I don't know how many years of eligibility he's got. Seems like he's been there since the Obama administration, but he's back. They've got Deion Walker, who's a potential first rounder in the middle. They added Jason Dumas-Johnson from Georgia, who was a stud there. Derek Jackson is making some first team all SEC lists in some places further down, third and fourth teams. And they got Mark Stoops, who's usually had pretty good defenses. So Kentucky, I don't know that Kentucky will be in most people's top 5s, given that they weren't great on defense last year. But I look at those names, and there's not a lot of defenses in this league where you can look at the names that like Kentucky. I'm betting on that.
You bring up Kentucky. That's one of those I was battling. all week this week, getting ready for this on putting them in. I would put them at number 6, I think, on my list, but Kentucky did not make mine. So you had the tie at number 5. So let's move to number 4. I have got the Missouri Tigers at number 4 on my list. I think, last year they had so many guys returning, and they, had a great, they had, like 13 tacklers returning last year. They had a great defensive coordinator. A lot has changed on the Missouri defense, but Corey Batoon coming in, he was South Alabama's defensive coordinator under Kane Womack, who I mentioned now, the defensive coordinator in Alabama. But he's brought in some pieces that I think could be really big for this defense for Missouri. If they're going to be back again towards the top, like I think they will be, you've got to have a good defense, and I definitely think they will. Again, they did lose some guys, but I think they're still going to be one of the top defenses, and especially in only allowing last year. Let's see, they only allowed like 20-something points per game. I think it'll be right back up there again this year. So I've got Missouri based on the guys they brought in. Again, like I said with Alabama, these guys may not be household names, but they get out there and get the job done. So I got Missouri at number 4.
Yeah, actually, they allowed 20.3 points a game, so they're almost in the teens, which was really hard to do. And what was it, 5.3 yards per play? I thought about Missouri. I didn't put them in there because they lost 3/4 of the defensive backfield, plus a stud up front, and just not as much returning as some of these other teams. I went with Texas A&M, and I know A&M had some losses in the portal, but they also got some names we know. 22.1 points a game, 5.2 yards per play a year ago against a solid schedule. They picked up Nick, I guess it's Scourton, who led the Big Ten in sacks last year. They got him up front. They've got Shamar Turner back, who's been there a while, Torian York, who's been there a while, and Tyreek Chappell, who's been there a while. And also, speaking of returnees, they returned their old defensive coordinator, Mike Elko. So I will bet on the Aggies between the talent and the coaching that they will be in the top 5. I did not have Missouri on my list, again, for reasons that I outlined. Although Missouri, if we're judging this by stats at the end of the year, may be there just by virtue of that schedule.
Yeah, and a lot of this, and I'll preface my list is predicting. I'm predicting who the top 5 will be, and so I think they'll be up there. All right, moving to number 3, I have got the Texas Longhorns at number 3. If they're going to be in the playoff talk, they're going to have a good defense, and I think they will. Last year, they had like 6 starters back, and they did well. I mean, they were in the teens of points per game last year. They have got 8 returning. They've added a couple of guys, including UTSA Trey Moore. He's come in. They got a Clemson transfer. They lost a couple of guys up front, but I think they've put the pieces that they need to in order. But I think we talk a lot about the Texas offense and how great the quarterback room is and the wide receivers and all that. But I think this defense has a chance to be really elite. And if they are, that's when we're talking about Texas possibly playing for a national championship. But I've got Texas there at number 3.
I've got Alabama number 3. And I know it may not be the absolute star-studded Alabama defenses of the past, but, man, they got some guys that have played a lot of ball there. They've got Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, Deontay Lawson, Jihad Campbell, Malachi Moore, probably the headliner there. I just feel like they were under a defensive-oriented coach in Nick Saban for a long time. Not that their offenses weren't plenty good too, but I just feel like the stockpile of depth and talent, even if it's not the names we know, like the Will Andersons and some of the guys that were just headliners, they'll figure it out. They're Alabama.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there. And that's it's kind of one of those teams I had to put them in there. I put them in at 5. I think they could be better than that. I definitely agree with your reasoning there for number 3. Moving to number 2, look at the Ole Miss Rebels. Lane Kiffin, an offensive guru, but he knows that he can't hang everything on offense. So he went out and got 6 defensive transfers that will most likely be starters. So he put a lot of emphasis on defense in the offseason. He's got Pete Golding as a defensive coordinator who once served under Nick Saban there in Alabama, departed Tuscaloosa, went over to Oxford, Mississippi. But he's gotten really good pieces out of the transfer portal in every key position on the defense. And I feel like he's spent a lot of the offseason going all in on the defense to match his style of offense. If he and he knows this is the year. This is the year he can be in the playoff and he can make a push for the national championship. So I think what he's done on defense, I'm very much impressed with. So I've got Ole Miss at number 2.
I will need to believe that to see it. Chase, if you're right about that, then Ole Miss fans just go ahead and purchase your, make your playoff plans because you're going to be there. I think they have upgraded the talent a lot. Chris Paul, Walter Nolan. But I just think there's too many defenses in this league where I like the track record a little, which is strange to say in the era of the transfer portal. But I couldn't go there like you did. But hey, what makes the rankings interesting is when one of us is a little bold. So I'm glad you did it there.
Yeah, and I have high expectations for Ole Miss, so I'm kind of letting out these expectations in this ranking here. Who do you have at number 2?
Okay, I went Texas.
Okay.
18.9 points a game last year, 5.2 yards a play. And again, that came in the offense-heavy Big 12. They've got 8 returning starters, according to Phil Steele, 7 if it's Lindy's. Ethan Burke is back. They added – here's the big thing. They added Trey Moore, who's a 2023 American Conference Defensive Player of the Year, 13 sacks. He's a backup for this team potentially. I like depth. When you got a guy like that as a backup, that's a good sign. I will hang my hat on Texas being in that elite group.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there, and yeah, it was tough figuring out where to put them. I put them at 3, but they very well could have been 2 on my list as well. So number 1, and I think we both probably have the same one. I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. Number 1 looks like 7 starters back from last year's defense. I mean, you look at really the line, the defensive backs, linebackers. I mean, they're loaded once again. I mean, Kirby Smart, defensive, one of the best defensive minds I think in the country, and that's on display. I think in any time he is coaching, you'll see a great defense, and once again, I think you'll see another one this year. Just with all the guys coming back, they lost just a few guys, and I expect this possibly to be one of the best defenses we've seen under Kirby Smart, really.
Yeah, I mean, you bet on it till you stop seeing it. I mean, they were 15.6 points a game, 4.8 yards per play. That's so hard to do in this era of college football. Phil Steele's got them projected as the number 3 total defense in the country, the number 3 scoring defense. Well, how good are they going to be if they do that against that schedule? That's pretty incredible. And again, names. Not often you see a lot of teams with these names returning, but Malachi Starks, Nazir Stackhouse, Smile Munden, Michael Williams, Dalen Everett, a lot of names we know in the history and the pedigree and the coaching. So, yeah, I mean, that was probably my easiest pick, Chase, of the 5, which I made into 6 that you challenged me to do.
Yes. So that was fun. Yeah. We like rankings. So that was our top 5 SEC defenses heading into the 2024 season. And we'll be looking at different position groups and stuff like that as we move through the summer, getting you ready what is inching closer to the SEC football season. So we will head into likely or unlikely in just a second. I want to pause just a second though and say, hey, if you like our content here, if you like what you see, and maybe you have a business, you want to sponsor what we're doing here at Southeastern 16 on the SEC Football Hour, would love for you to reach out to us. You can shoot us a message there on Twitter, on social media. But you can shoot me an email as well, chase@southeastern14.com. Would love to hear from you if you want to sponsor our content. We're always looking for partners and ways we can spread the word about your business right here on our platform. So again, shoot me an email, chase@southeastern14.com. And you can sponsor our great content here on Southeastern 16 as we are growing. We've got, of course, the SEC Football Hour. We got SEC Baseball Weekly. We got the SEC Basketball Experience. So great things happening here at Southeastern 16.